we stick to one basic principle when it comes to food is we don't do processed. So we do everything from scratch. And that's always been my philosophy in the restaurants and everything else. It's just like if you're buying it and you know exactly where it came from and then you cook it simply, it's going to be good for you, right?
We are so pleased to be joined by Chef Randy Feltis, one half of the duo behind Katherine Wants, the social media sensation inspiring couples to connect through food. With over 700,000 followers on TikTok and a brand new cookbook, Katherine Wants, Randy Cooks, they're proving that cooking isn't just about making meals, it's about building confidence, strengthening relationships, and making everyday moments special. This episode is part of the Canadian Men's Health Foundation Fuel for Strength series, highlighting how food fuels both physical and emotional well-being. Led by Dietitians of Canada, this year's Nutrition Month theme, Nourish to Flourish, reminds us that food is more than fuel. It's about connection, resilience, and enjoying the moments that matter most. I'm your host, Dan Murphy, and this is the Don't Change Much podcast. So for those of us meeting you for the first time, Chef, Katherine Wants, what is it and how did it start?
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. So Katherine Wants is a bit of a crazy story. We dated like 13 years ago, and then we both got married to other people, which kind of, happens, I guess, sometimes. And then we had the chance, we were both divorced and we got together. And honestly, we just started like celebrating our lives, drinking a lot of champagne, shucking oysters, and putting that out on the internet, just like in stories on Instagram. And everyone was really intrigued by this, and they were asking for recipes. And as chefs, we hate writing recipes. So I was like, if we're going to put recipes out because the people want it, then we're going to brand it and we're going to try to make some money. And that's how Katherine Wants started.
And so you originally met, you said 13 years ago, was that in a restaurant?
It was, I had a restaurant downtown Barrie, Ontario, which is just north of Toronto. It was called Oscar's. I was the chef. Katherine was the bartender. And I think most people that worked in restaurants have heard that story before.
So have you always had a love for cooking? Or when did that start?
So yeah, I started cooking when I was like 13. I was in the kitchen with my mom. We'd bake pies and stuff, and she made me put a pie in the country fair, and I won first place. That's in the bio of the book, and everyone thinks that's incredible. But I do have a secret to tell you. It was the men's division of the apple pie, so it wasn't that big of a deal. I think like 4 or 5 guys entered, but mine was the best. And the point of the story is it sparked my career, my interest in food. And, I wasn't really good at anything else other than cooking. And so that was the natural pathway.
Now, cooking for you, did it start as a job and turn into a passion, or did you realize you had a passion for it and turned it into a job?
It was always the passion. My family wasn't really, we didn't have interesting food at home. We're farmers, and so everything was grown, and it was meat and it was potatoes. There was a lot of meat. There was a lot of potatoes. My dad grew up on a potato farm, so it was always like that. Like pasta was never heard of. Pizza was very, very that just wouldn't happen. And so I started going to the grocery store with my mom and buying ingredients and making things I just wouldn't be able to get otherwise.
And Katherine, has she always had a love for food as well?
This is kind of the beautiful thing is, as I matured and went to culinary school, and just everything was about food and travel. And Katherine, her grandmother helped raise her, and her grandmother, her grandfather was an Air Canada pilot. So she basically flew all over the world and had a very interesting palate because she would go places and eat different types of food. So she loves everything about food.
And I'm assuming by the title, Katherine Wants, it started with Katherine saying what she wanted Randy to make, correct?
Yeah, 1000%. We probably dated other women in our time, and it's like, what do you want for lunch? And they're like, I don't know. And it's like, we finally solved the problem. Katherine knows what she wants, and she gets exactly what she asks for.
What was the first thing that you made for her that you guys connected over, if you can remember?
I can remember. Yeah. I had some some diver scallops at one of the restaurants. And so I went and got them and they were in the shell, right? So they're still alive. So I shucked the scallops out and then cut them and did a crudo with some like courgette, like some zucchini flowers, a little bit of lemon and chives. And it was just all in one deliciousness. But that was a big flex. I don't try that hard anymore. So I was like, okay, let's see if this girl really likes food or not. And she loved it. So.
Only on special occasions. Now, when did you guys first start dating? Like after the divorces of your first marriages?
Yeah. So I think you're going to put me on the spot here. I think it's 5.5 years now.
Okay.
So like, I don't know the month. I'm not good with this stuff, but about just over 5 years.
You guys would have spent a lot of time together during COVID.
Yes.
And did a lot of cooking over COVID.
Well, that's kind of how we had it started, and then it really blew up over COVID because I think people were looking for things to do, and we were just cooking every single day, and we were having fires in the backyard and cleaning up the backyard, and then we put a slab of pork belly up there and make our own bacon, and people were like, these guys are really enjoying COVID. This looks like a good time.
Would it be safe to say then food and cooking have been a central part of building your relationship, growing your relationship?
I don't want to put a percentage on it, but it's all we talk about, all we think about, and really all we plan around. Our vacations are planned around where we're going to go and what restaurant we're going to go to. Our daily activities are like, okay, what's for breakfast? What's for lunch? What's for dinner? Hey, can we go to that? There's a new sub shop from the States. It's open in Vaughan and we'll travel for 2 hours to go to that new sub shop. It's just like, and then the rest of it kind of fills in the blanks because really, aren't we like just hungry all the time? And then as soon as you're not hungry, you kind of think about what you're going to eat next.
Oh yeah, totally. And you kind of mentioned it about people enjoying the social media posts. So how did you say this is something that we could pursue, that people like, that we like doing? How did you become a full-blown brand?
Yeah, it really came down to the recipes because then it became work. When we were just posting what we were eating and fun, that was just us having fun. But as soon as the followers were demanding the recipe, I was like, well, that's a job. So with the job, we're going to brand it. And we're more interested in doing YouTube. And the progression, we didn't get a lot of traction on YouTube. And then we got on TikTok and it blew up. And from TikTok, it's kind of fueled the Instagram. And then, so we do 3 posts a week. We do full recipes with every post. And that's what's turned it into a bit of a brand.
Okay. Now, March is Nutrition Month. And the theme is Nourish to Flourish. Food can do a lot of things. It can nourish just for nutrition. It can nourish relationships. It can strengthen bonds. So how has food helped you guys grow and flourish and become stronger in the last 5 years?
So we stick to one basic principle when it comes to food is we don't do processed. So we do everything from scratch. And that's always been my philosophy in the restaurants and everything else. It's just like, if you're buying it and you know exactly where it came from, and then you cook it simply, it's going to be good for you, right? We don't count calories. We love butter. We love olive oil. We love fat. And we just feel like we're doing our part by cooking from scratch, nothing processed, and everything's going to turn out just fine.
Fat is flavor.
Listen, you eat the fat, and like, we're big on the ribeye diet. We're big on the freaking lamb. But anyway, I would never say vegetarians are doing things wrong, and we can actually have a vegetarian meal. But as soon as we're done that vegetarian meal, we're usually thinking about what we're going to, like, what protein or what rack of lamb we're going to do next, right? Like, variety is really the spice. And so our one and only rule in keeping things healthy and proper is that we don't do processed foods.
Can dinners be more than a part of the celebration of big moments in life? Can they be the centerpiece of things when you're celebrating?
I think the food is the centerpiece of everything. It doesn't matter if it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or snacking, or whatever it might be. When anyone goes to a wedding, and I think that's probably one of the bigger celebrations in life, they don't care about the flowers. They care about the food. Like, how was the food at the wedding? That's the number one question, right? And So it's always the centerpiece in our world. And we do it all. Like sometimes dinners can be hectic around here because there's 3 kids. And we might just get some quick wonton soup or a quick curry that we'll just put together. Or we go and we do like a 4 or 5 course or two, depending on who we've invited or what's going on. But it's always the centerpiece and it's always what's talked about. And it's always what's important. I love that you brought up that you were baking with your daughter. And that's kind of like, it was more about the relationship than what you were baking. But it's something that you can connect with because you're in it together. And if it sucks, you're probably going to laugh and go, okay, how can we fix this? And if it's awesome, then you're like, wow, we did this together. But either way, you're getting something more out of it than just what you created.
There's no question. Now, how do you pick what foods you're going to have for certain celebrations? Because obviously on date night, when it's just the two of you, you're going to cook something different from when it's like family style. So when you, as a chef, how do you plan those meals when it's, let's start, if it's a date night and it's romantic, what are the types of meals that you're serving up for our male listeners out there that might be trying this?
So it's funny because in the cookbook, we broke it down as that is like, this is the date night section. And then we have larger quantity, like meet the parents section. And it always starts with how many. So the number one, if we're just cooking for 2 people, then we're going to try to do something a little bit more elevated because you can spend a bit more money, right? If you're cooking for the family, 30 or 40 people, you're probably going to do something a little bit larger quantity that isn't so expensive to purchase. So date night, I mean, a perfect one, actually, we're going to be shooting it today is the crab cake. For a few reasons. It's super simple to put together. The crab's already cooked, and 9 times out of 10, the crab comes in like a can from the Philippines or something like that. You get the jumbo lump, and you can choose your adventure from as simple as $12 a tin up to $100 a tin. Now, Katherine, she likes the $100 a tin, you can imagine. And then I use kind of a simple little, like in the book, I think it's like some eggs and some breadcrumbs, and then we do the mustard sauce, a little fennel slaw, and that's kind of fantastic. It comes together quickly. But I think if guys really want to impress their date, they would do something simple that they could execute and then maybe bring it up a level with some oysters. Oysters really set the tone to where you want the date to kind of go because they have that reputation. And if you're capable of shucking the oysters in front of your date, now you're talking about entertaining. So you're getting the bottle of champagne going, you're shucking the oysters in front of her. And it's like, it's a whole night of kind of just mingling and hanging out and talking over the preparation of the food and then obviously eating. If you can't shuck the oysters, then you don't know how to use YouTube. Just ask your fishmonger to shuck the oysters for you.
For someone who is new to cooking and obviously is not going to impress their date with something that you could cook, what's a good place to start? An easy place to start that you're not going to mess up too bad, that actually that the effort is going to mean just as much as the finished product?
Pasta. It's always pasta, isn't it? Like you could do a bolognese and you could get it right the day ahead of time. So if you're really nervous, you don't know how to cook, you would have a full 24 hours. If you did mess it up, you could invite your chef friend over like myself. You could do that thing. Or, you could do a prime rib. There's a recipe that's pretty foolproof in the book. It's all about timing and mathematics. So it's almost like baking on the prime rib. But you'd be amazed how many text messages and phone calls I get from friends be like, hey, I got this going in and I don't think it worked out. What do I do? Right. And I think everyone's got like Google, they can do that at home and search it. But the best tip, if you're not a very good cook, is do the work ahead of time. So get the prep done ahead of time, like a day or so, and then you could just kind of reheat and serve.
You mentioned whole foods as well. And that I think is of greater nutritional value, not processed. So how important is it to cook with those ingredients to make it as nutritious as possible?
So as a chef, every chef always comes back whenever they're talking about any culture or cuisine, they talk about ingredients and sourcing your ingredients and knowing where they're coming from. Like if you live in Ireland, you're going to eat a lot of fish because you're on an island, right? In Vancouver, I imagine you eat a lot of seafood, a lot of fish because it's close by and it's fresh and it's available. It's everything. Like the ingredients are actually more important than the cooking. A lot of the chefs and celebrity chefs get this notification or get this kind of accolade that they're like these incredible people that do this. And the real work goes into the farming. The farmers are the real heroes there, but they don't really get that kind of thank you. But the chefs that are excelling and doing very well, they're just better at finding ingredients. So it doesn't matter if you're beginning cooking or if you've been cooking for decades, the number one step is finding the best ingredients you can and then cook them very simply. And if you do that, the health kind of falls in place.
Food is fuel, correct? I mean, for your body, what are some of the more important things that we should be including in our meals, in our food prep, to make sure that we are giving ourselves the best chance to have a healthy body, have a healthy mind, set us up for the day, perhaps even to make sure that we're getting off on the right start?
Read the ingredients. I stay away from the terrible oils, and everyone makes fun of me. I drink the olive oil. I love olive oil. I cook with olive oil. I deep fry with olive oil. I don't care what the trolls say. Like, you can't do that. I can. I did. It tastes better and it's better for me. And it's a good decision for my family. Right. So get rid of those like corn stuff, corn fructose. If you see sugar like that anywhere, like we have maple syrup everywhere instead of using like the processed sugar. And definitely the corn syrups have to go. It's making those simple decisions, eat a banana in the morning, eat some vegetables. Those are good for you too. But if you get rid of all the processed stuff, it's going to be just fine.
Yes. So TikTok following is what, 700,000? Is that somewhere in that neighborhood?
Yep. We're getting close to date. Yeah. Pretty good.
How do you try to continue to create content that is not only fun, but engaging? And I think probably the most important thing is that what people want with Instagram and TikTok, authentic, keeping authentic.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, obviously the goal is to try to get as many views as possible, but sometimes that just doesn't work in your favor. You do a video that you think is amazing and it doesn't land there. And then another time you just be like, we don't have anything, so I'm going to cut a video from 2 months ago that we didn't think was that great. And it takes off like a rocket, right? And so I think the lesson that Katherine and I have learned is that we can't let the tail wag the dog. Right? We just do what we think is fun and interesting. And at the end of the day, if it works out, that's fantastic. But we don't really get too wrapped up with what succeeds and what fails.
Is there a favorite dish that Katherine has of yours that you go back to? Like the one, I want this again. Katherine wants what 3 weeks ago?
Yes. Katherine always wants Oscar smoked salmon. So that was the restaurant we met in. It's like a hot smoked salmon. And then it's got like a maple syrup and kind of herbs on top, and you can serve it hot, you can serve it cold, you can serve it room temperature. For every major function we have at the house, like the families are coming over, she's like, you got a side of salmon, you got a side of salmon. It's always around. She can't get enough of it.
Have you heard from guys who have started cooking because of your social media? Have you heard from many people that you inspired me, and what were those stories like?
For sure. It's crazy. Like, we get messages in our DM about things like that. But the most touching one recently, we were at a cookbook signing at the Cheese Boutique in Toronto, and like an 8-year-old girl came up and she's like, I love all your recipes. My mom and I try all your recipes. This was my favorite one. And I was just melting. I was like, this is incredible. When I was a young kid, we didn't have a lot. We only had 2 television channels, but I watched The Urban Peasant and Walk with Chan. And I was just like, these guys are the best, right? So now I kind of put myself in that shoes to this young girl. It was an amazing feeling.
I know some guys get, I guess they're afraid of going in the kitchen. They don't know where to start. Is there any tips for beginners? You mentioned just keep it simple. But for first timers going in there, just trying to learn their way around a stove or a grill, should they start with a barbecue if that's something they've kind of done and create their dishes around something from the barbecue and just make your sides later? Like if you're a little bit nervous of actually going in the kitchen part of things, but you're used to barbecue, can you base your meal around what you know and then supplement that with some other things that you might not be as confident in?
I think it's like anything, it's just trial and error, and practice is always going to make you better. There's 2 big things with cooking, right? It's time and heat. And so you might be good at cooking one thing and just keep doing that one thing until you get it down. But then I guess where it gets more difficult with the entertaining is timing all the dishes and getting them right at the right time. And so never take on too much and always try to do as much work ahead of time is always the best. But tips around the stove, you're going to, if you go skiing, you're going to fall down. If you're not trying harder. And if you're not cutting your finger once in a while with a sharp knife. You're not trying hard enough to get your knife skills right. And if you're not burning yourself once in a while, you know, you're not trying hard enough. So
Yeah.
these things happen, accidents are going to happen. And once again, is not the mistakes you make. It's how you fix them.
How old are your kids now, Randy?
So my boy is turning 14 next month. Livy is 3.5, and we have brand new Romy's just 5 months old today.
Okay. And for the 14 and 3.5-year-old, is food playing a big part of their lives? Are they attracted to the kitchen because that's where they see you guys a lot of the time?
So the 14-year-old, he's starting to cook now. He's kind of late to it because he is a little intimidated. And, for a long time when he was younger, he ate everything. And then all of a sudden he wasn't really interested in eating that much. You go out on the chicken fingers and French fries, which we kind of hate, but you want them to eat. So he got there, but now he's starting to develop his palate, like sushi. And so I take him to nice places, and then he'll come in there and we'll do some crudo stuff in the kitchen here. So he's starting to get into it now, and it's fantastic. The 3.5-year-old, she'll eat anything that doesn't eat her first. Like, she's just wild. So she likes to make popcorn with me, and she's got her little thing that she can pull up to the side of the stove, and that's our thing. So little by little, we'll get there.
Nice. Now, your book includes relationship advice. What's one tip that you would give to guys who want to impress their partner?
If I open up a bottle of French champagne, she's excited. She's happy. So that's always a good tip. I guess the lights is not going to hurt. Like, here's the thing. Maybe buy some sweets. You don't have to make the sweets. Like, some people that get good at cooking don't really appreciate the baking stuff. Like, just get it packaged from a nice shop. That's a nice little touch. But I think the number one thing you can do on date night to get your food right is understand salt and pepper. You get the salt right in the dish, it's hard not to taste good.
Yeah, you have to make the seasoning a priority in that. Where do you see this going, Randy, for you guys on your food journey, on your business journey, on your life journey? How do you see this progressing?
It's really interesting. Like, we did a bit of traveling, and now people really like the traveling content. So it just gives us excuses to go traveling, which is fantastic. And, the cookbook has been pretty successful. We think we haven't got the numbers back yet, but it's the big impact has been out there, and it's working out really well. So I don't really know where it's going to go. We're just kind of having fun with it. And if people still want the recipes, then we're going to keep producing it. And I don't know. It's really funny because I've been in restaurants cooking since I was 15. I've been in ownership since I was 24. So I've owned 13 restaurants. No one ever asked me to make a cookbook. We start posting recipes on the internet, and all of a sudden the publisher comes in and is like, "Hey, you guys should do a cookbook." We're like, "Yeah, you're right. We should." And so that has been kind of life-changing because I spent my entire life and career just banging it out in restaurants. And then as soon as I start making recipes on the internet, someone's like, we got to write a book. So already we just can't believe where it's taken us. So we're just going to enjoy the ride and see where it goes.
Was it safe to say that food is a never-ending journey? You can take it for as long as you want.
It is. I hear people talk about art and how art is freedom and it makes, your life just that much richer. And I think that's fine if you like art, but I think food is just such a more powerful gift because it goes with the traveling. We spent our honeymoon in Spain, and the food is just outrageous. And we'll never forget those memories. We'll never forget those dishes. It just gives you so much. And it just, you go to the other side of the world and people just change their philosophy a little bit in food. And you're like, that's really smart. So you take a small piece of that with you in your travels.
Yeah. Well, the name of the podcast is Don't Change Much. So when I say don't change much to you, what would you think it means?
Yeah, I keep it simple. At the end of the day, we love just salt and pepper and charred ribeye. That is everything. And if I get a piece of fish and it's really, really fresh, I'll just go lemon, dill, maybe butter. It's don't change much. I think when people fall into traps of cooking is they see some complicated stuff and they try to execute that and it falls short. If you just get the techniques right of the actual heat and time, season it properly, you're good. Don't change much.
Where can people find your content?
Oh, we're at Katherine Wants on Instagram, on TikTok, and YouTube.
And the name of the cookbooks?
Oh, the name of the cookbook is Katherine Wants, Randy Cooks, the ultimate date night cookbook.
Keep cooking, keep doing what you're doing, keep producing great content, and we wish you the best moving forward. It's been a really fun conversation.
Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Don't Change Much podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and hit follow so you never miss an episode. You can find Katherine Wants, Randy Cooks, wherever books are sold, and follow them at Katherine Wants on TikTok and Instagram. This podcast is part of the Canadian Men's Health Foundation's Nutrition Month Fuel for Strength series. Visit menshealthfoundation.ca for more expert tips to eat healthier. We'll see you next time.